distortion. Sweet as a nut. Knobs. If someone walks in now, they'll think I'm nuts. Hello and welcome to Daily Guitar. Today we're going to take a look at overdrive pedals. And if you like this kind of thing and you want to see more, feel free to like and subscribe. The word overdrive describes the broken up, saturated sound you get when pushing a clipping diode or a transistor or a vacuum tube past its natural clean limitations. This is what's known as clipping the signal. A soft clip will give you an overdrive sound, and a hard clip will give you a distortion / fuzz sound. The term distortion is really interchangeable with the term overdrive. They're doing the same thing, but nowadays guitarists would call something a bit like the heavier end of the spectrum we call distortion, the lighter end we call overdrive. The quest for overdrive and distortion isn't a new one. In the 40s and 50s, blues guitarists used to crank their amps as loud as they could to try and get an overdrive sound to match the kind of raspy, broken up, vocal fried voices of blues singers like Howlin' Wolf. And the only way they could do that was to turn their amp on full, and that would give it a fatter, deeper sound, but not necessarily overdrive. Another thing they used to do was to poke holes in the speaker cone or sometimes slash the speaker cone with a blade to make it sound raspy. Then in 1962, Gibson released the Maestro FZ1 fuzz tone, and the world of overdrive and effects pedals changed forever. Really, there are four main types of overdrive. We've got boost, overdrive, distortion, and fuzz. Boost pedals are designed to increase the volume of your guitar signal and to push the preamp of your guitar harder. That will mean that the preamp tubes will be pushed into overdrive or clipping sooner to give you more of an overdrive sound from your amp. People also use boost to go after the preamp, which means in the effects loop, and this way you're actually just boosting the overall volume. So in terms of going in the effects loop, you're not really using it as an overdrive, you're using it just as a plain volume boost, but you can use it as to make your amp overdrive by putting it in front of the amp, and that's another common thing to do. This full drive 3 pedal here has got a boost circuit, which you can switch to go either after the overdrive or before it. So kind of like I was saying with the amp, if you have the boost going into the overdrive, it's creating more overdrive. If you have the boost after the overdrive, it's creating more volume, so not necessarily more overdrive. Typically, a boost pedal will just have one control, which will be volume. Sometimes they may have another one like dynamics, but mostly they're just one or two buttons. Not buttons, knobs. Overdrive pedals use clipping diodes internally to create the overdrive sound. So the overdrive signal is actually created inside the pedal and then sent to your amp. A lot of the time, this overdrive sound will be used in addition to an overdrive sound on the amp, in which that's called gain stacking when you do that. You can also do it with pedals. But a lot of people use an overdrive pedal like a boost anyway, so they have the drive or the gain turned right down, then the volume on full and maybe the treble boosted, to push your amp's preamp into further overdrive. Typically, an overdrive pedal will have just 3 controls: gain, level, and tone. Distortion pedals are generally considered higher gain than overdrive pedals, and they also tend to have more tone sculpting features. For example, the Boss Metal Zone has got, we've got level, high, low, middle, and then mid frequency, which is where you select the mid frequency you want to boost or cut, and then a distortion as well. So a little bit more tone sculpting, much higher gain. They also, another thing that's different about distortion pedals is it's more common with the distortion pedal to put it in front of a clean amp, a completely clean amp. And you might want to have a distortion pedal if you've got a very clean amp, like something like a Fender Blues Junior, which isn't great for metal. And you can use something like this Metal Zone to completely transform the sound of the amp and to make it sound much higher gain. Whereas overdrive pedals, you often use in conjunction with your amp. You can use them as just a freestanding overdrive. This one, the full drive, works kind of like a freestanding overdrive. But other more subtle overdrive / boost pedals like this Soul Food, you'd kind of use in conjunction with your amp's tone. Some other things you may see on a distortion pedal are controls like contour or resonance. And that again is just to really, that's more like amp controls, because distortion circuits are often a little bit more like a preamp than an overdrive pedal. Fuzz pedals are the oldest type of overdrive pedal, and what separates fuzz pedals from the rest of the pack is that fuzzes generally produce a square wave signal clip. So they're the most clipped, or in effect the heaviest of all the overdrive pedals. But that heaviness can also be quite thin and buzzy kind of sounding. So fuzz is used in metal, but not as much as distortion. Typically, a fuzz pedal will have 3 controls, a bit like overdrive. You'll have volume, overdrive, or fuzz, it might say. In this case, it says sustain and tone. But some more modern fuzz pedals, like my friend Alex from Xander Circuitry, his pedal has a starve feature. And what that does is it reduces the voltage getting to the circuit and gives the sound of like a vintage fuzz pedal where the battery is getting low on power. Apparently in the 60s, people used to deliberately use low charge batteries with their fuzz pedals because it got a different tone, or a tone they liked more. I don't know if that's rubbish or not, but that's what I heard. So why do guitarists love them? There are a few reasons that guitarists love overdrive pedals. For one, if you've got an amp, you might not be able to afford another amp, but you can buy an overdrive pedal and you can either get more out of your amp or you can change the sound of your amp. On top of that, overdrive pedals it's far cheaper to buy an overdrive or distortion or fuzz pedal to change the sound of your amp than it is to buy a new amp. You can also, because they're very small, you can have multiple overdrive pedals on a pedal board and have lots of different sounds. So say, I don't know, say you just want like you want to push your amp harder because you do like the sound of your amp, then you'd have something like a tube screamer. This doesn't look like a tube screamer, this is a limited edition gold one. And but it sounds amazing. And this will boost your amp and make your amp sound better. But then if you don't like the sound of your amp and you want something completely different, you might use something like a Marshall Governor or a Boss Metal Zone, not that I'm saying these are alike in quality, and get a completely different sound from your amp. And then that's why you might want an overdrive pedal. But then the reason we like the sound of overdrive pedals is because an overdrive pedal will give your guitar sustain and compression, which doesn't sound very rock and roll, but when you explain it, but on a deeper level, the compression makes all of your guitar playing louder, and where it hits the peak is where you get the overdrive sound, but also it means that all your playing comes out the same volume. So when you're doing a solo, if your fingers are a little bit weaker in some spots than in other spots, it will all sound the same volume, and it will make soloing easier. And when you push a bend or hold a note, the overdrive and the compression caused by the overdrive will make it sustain for longer the note, so the note will last longer. So what are my favorite overdrive pedals? I actually don't own my favorite overdrive pedal. My favorite overdrive pedal I've ever played was probably when I was in America a few years ago. I played a Friedman BEOD, and that was sweet as a nut. I've got no idea why people say that. I don't know what it means. But it was just amazing. It was just super tonally versatile and just sounded... I actually tried it through a bass amp and it sounded incredible. Just completely transformed it. So that's my favorite overdrive pedal. I don't know why I haven't got one. I guess because I got the HX Stomp, I sort of don't need one, but I would still like one. Maybe I will still get a Friedman BEOD. That's also kind of like a preamp as well. You could just use that to completely transform your amp by going into the effects loop. But then in terms of my favorite overdrives that I actually own, like I said before, absolutely love the Tube Screamer. The only reason this isn't on my board is because it's gold, and if I was playing a gig with it and it got covered in beer, it's quite tricky to replace. I also suspect this is probably worth more now than when I got it. So maybe that's a collectible, I don't know. But this is one I actually do have on my board. I have the Full Tone Full Drive 3. This is fantastic because it does a really good overdrive sound, and it's got the boost built in. So you've got a solo booster and the overdrive. And like I said earlier, you can switch whether you want the boost to go before or after the overdrive. So super versatile pedal. What I will say is it's great for heavy rock and for blues, not for metal, this. For metal, I do just use my HX Stomp, and I can't remember exactly what I use, which setting. I think it's a preamp actually that I use on the HX Stomp for when I'm playing metal. I do really like the Soul Food as well, but actually this one's broken, so it's really ticking me off at the moment. It does this annoying thing where sometimes it just cuts the guitar signal, but not when it's on, when it's off, and then it comes back when it's on. So I think I need to replace the switch, but I just can't be asked, but I need to do that at some point. I also absolutely love this Xander Circuitry Surplus pedal. His new models don't look like this anymore, but do the same thing, I'm pretty sure. This is kind of meant to sound like a broken up preamp in a mixing desk. So quite versatile. It's kind of like a fuzzy overdrive, but it can do kind of cleany, subtle fuzzy overdrive to like very, very heavy overdrive, and it's got a second channel so you can go from one to the other. It's also got selectable diodes, so you can choose whether it's an LED, a germanium, a silicon, and a transistor, or you can have no diode, so it's non-compressing. And yeah, really, I would recommend checking out Xander Circuitry. This isn't sponsored by them, but he's a friend, and so this is completely biased. Well, thank you so much for watching. Why do you love overdrive pedals? Do feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I've been JT, and I still will be JT when this video is finished. Take care. Bye.